Test, test, test. All right. How's everybody doing? All right. How's everybody doing? This is my first time doing one of these, so I apologize if it doesn't sound pristine, but we're going to do what we can here. Cool. So I want to make sure I got this down. Come check us out if you are coming from our Facebook page. All right, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test, test, test. We're going to do a live here. Make sure I get this done right. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shoot me a line if you can hear me. How's that sound? All right, let's have a look here at Isaias. What we now believe is Hurricane Isaias. I hope it weakens as well, but let's be honest with ourselves. Oh man, okay. I'm trying to get this thing to work on my phone as well so I can see everything. Cool. Mic sounds great, awesome. All right. Cool, I'm going to come back and we'll do this, we'll try to get this right, but you can see Isaias right now off the Florida coast and kind of paralleling the coast. It's not coming any closer to Florida than it already has earlier today. So we're going to take a look at the satellite image, and this morning we had the system down here and it's kind of moved very much parallel to the coast. Now it looks like our center is over here to the east of Cape Canaveral, and it's not moving nearly as quickly today as it was yesterday. It's kind of stuck in between a high pressure ridge and a weakness that is going to be picking it up to the north. So we've got probably another maybe 30 hours over water before this system is going to be making landfall in the Carolinas. And of course, I'm going to try to pull this up on my phone so I can see your comments while I am speaking to you. But for those of you guys just joining, it's Joshua Nagelberg over in Raleigh, and it is coming my way. So my family and I are actually getting ready for it as well. We're not going to see quite the impact that those at the coast are going to be getting here tomorrow night, but I do expect to see some issues. Been through a few tropical systems myself, Grew up in Louisiana, so I went through Hurricane Andrew as a middle schooler. It was actually my first week of middle school, and we didn't have school for the rest of the week because it caused a lot of damage where I lived. And then my family went through Katrina. I was up north at that point, and in the Carolinas I've been through a few of them, like Florence and Matthew, and now looks like Isaias. So yeah, definitely not my first rodeo. How about you guys? How many storms have you all been through? Please let me know. Holden Beach, yes. Well, we are looking at, if I can get this track map up for you guys. Let's do this. So Holden Beach up here, we're probably looking at conditions going downhill after midnight tomorrow night, and probably the worst of it is going to be in that maybe 2 a.m. to 6 or 7 a.m. window in Holden Beach. Looks like the hurricane watch is pretty much right up to you guys, maybe just past you if my geography is correct. But definitely looks like, you know, we're having the threat for at least tropical storm conditions, if not maybe even some hurricane force wind gusts. All-out hurricane at Holden Beach, probably not. I think it's a bigger issue farther down the beach from you guys, closer to maybe Cape Fear and south of Wilmington, that area. But definitely something that we have to be watching for. Let me do this. I am going to, while I talk to you guys, open up my laptop so I can see what you're saying and show you what I'm seeing. How does that sound? This is my first YouTube Live, by the way. I'm just joined the Carolina Weather Authority team here in May, and been friends with Mike for a long time, so I've seen a lot of his work, and now I guess it's go time for me as well, helping out with all this, using kind of my experience, which has been almost 20 years of professional forecasting, and you know, we see something new every time with these systems, so don't be surprised if we don't see more changes coming to this forecast. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be watching YouTube concurrently while I show you guys everything. How does that sound? And it's loading up on my screen. And this is kind of a dry run when we get to the storm tomorrow. Oh, okay, that looks pretty good. Sweet. All right, I see everybody's comments here. I see KR, I see David, and looks like we've got some more people joining us, so please give me a shout, let me know where you're at. But anyway, what I wanted to show you guys was this recon report here. This is an aircraft that's flying through the storm right now, and it found that the pressure, we thought it had fallen based on what we were seeing. Apparently they're estimating things a little bit differently, but what I do want to share with you guys from this recon, which is flying in through the storm right now, actually it's to the north of the center, and looking at the western side of it, is a much bigger area of tropical storm to even hurricane force wind in the northeastern quadrant. Now, that's not going to impact anybody right now, but what it's showing us is that maybe this storm's got some life in it, and it's got some more time to maybe grow and intensify a little bit more. So we hope that's not the case, and this may just be another burst that it's going through. But we're in a spot right now where the wind shear is no longer killing the storm off like it was the other day. It's fighting the wind shear, but it's definitely still putting up a good fight. And the fact that it's growing and we're seeing this wind field expand makes us think that a nighttime system over the Gulf Stream, even with some wind shear, has a chance to grow and strengthen more. We're not calling it a Category 2 at landfall at this point, although I think that's still something that's possible, but definitely Category 1 is on the table. At the very weakest, I think it's a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm, but I think we're probably talking more 80 to 90-mile-per-hour wind at landfall. In fact, I'm seeing reports from hurricane hunters and people that are talking with them, I guess, that maybe we already have a hurricane and perhaps a 75 or 80-mile-per-hour storm for the 11 p.m. advisory. So I would not be surprised if that hurricane watch that's at the coast for South Carolina and North Carolina, let me show that to you guys real quick, right here, would not be 100% surprised if they eventually put this area under a hurricane warning. It may be at 11 a.m. or it may not be till 5 in the morning. I don't see what good they're doing in waiting at this point. If we think it's going to be a hurricane, let's just go ahead and let the people at the coast know that we're thinking it's going to be a hurricane. How does that sound? All right, so David's up in Virginia Beach, and you'll see on this map here the storm center is not going to be too far to your west, David, in Virginia Beach. And what we're going to see as this storm comes up in the morning on Tuesday is that it's not going to weaken very quickly. And reasoning for that is that it's going to be expanding its wind field. There'll be some southwesterly wind shear, which will kind of give it some kind of a push, I guess, in the back. And with this trough that's coming in behind it, it should actually allow this system to kind of expand on its western side. And it's not going to be extra tropical, but it will start to feed in off the jet stream. And that could mean not only a lot of rain potentially west of its track, but maybe even quite a bit of wind for those of you at the Virginia beaches, which you can see the tropical storm watch. Hurricane force winds in Virginia Beach? I don't think so at this point. I think if we have hurricane force wind, they're down, you know, maybe in Onslow County and on down into New Hanover, Brunswick County. And honestly, even though the hurricane watch is out here for the upper coast of South Carolina, including Myrtle Beach, I think the worst is going to stay offshore Myrtle Beach. And really at the North Carolina coast, the lower coast of North Carolina is where I think the likeliest winds at hurricane force are going to be. To answer some more questions, mandatory evacuation at Holden Beach put in place was a little overreacting. I mean, I can't really decide for the government what they're going to do. A strong tropical storm or Category 1 hurricane is going to cause damage at the beach. With the kind of storm surge we're likely to see, that may be 2 or 3 feet, it's going to do some damage to beachfront property. So I think they're taking the cautious approach in doing the evacuation, and I really don't have a problem with it. This storm is not weakening, it's actually looking to potentially strengthen. So if it gets a little bit stronger and everybody's off the island, then I think it's a good move. If it doesn't, I know it's a big hassle and a big inconvenience, but I think we don't have anything to gain by not doing it. So, Kay, I think that definitely, you know, they're onto something, and I'd rather be a little bit safe than sorry at this point. As far as boarding up windows or not on an oceanfront house in Surf City, you know, I think your windows are probably going to be able to handle the kind of wind we're looking at. It's going to be a fast-moving storm, and we may have some hurricane-force wind gusts. What I'm more concerned about for you guys in Surf City might be the storm surge. And maybe if your windows are low enough, that could be an issue. So at the very least, I mean, I can't tell you what to do, but maybe I can recommend, you know, storm shutters, or just, you know, making sure that your windows are taped and that the glass doesn't break. Windows are a lot better now than they were when I went through a hurricane in 1992. That was Hurricane Andrew, and we made out fine with 60-mile-an-hour wind. But if this thing is stronger, of course, I could see your concern about that. William over in Surf City. And hi from Calabash. Missed the beach. I haven't had a chance to go this year. My wife and I normally go to Surfside Beach, usually for her work. She works up at the university up here at NC State, and they do some classes at the beach. And with COVID and everything else, it hasn't happened. So we miss our midsummer trip to Surfside, and maybe next year, hopefully things will hold up from this storm and we don't have another one behind it. So anyway, this is the forecast track. What I did want to show you guys is the latest models coming out here at 8 o'clock. And what I am seeing is wonderful agreement for the very first time. And let me zoom in on this for you guys here so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Every single model takes this storm north-northwestward tonight and then starts to make the turn tomorrow morning. And then this is 8 p.m. tomorrow night. There are some timing differences, but every single model now takes us parallel to the Georgia coastline tomorrow afternoon, and then getting close to the Carolina border, North Carolina, South Carolina border. This looks like in about 30 hours. So this would put our landfall probably at about 2 in the morning on Tuesday, right near the state border. Of course, right now with all the strongest winds out in here, if you translate those up the coast, we're looking at perhaps a pretty nasty easterly fetch coming into the Wilmington area, and certainly Carolina Beach, Wrightsville Beach, Topsail Beach, even up to Surf City potentially. The Outer Banks are not looking as vulnerable this go-around due to the fact that the track's going to be farther west. But if for whatever reason this makes the turn and it's more severe and tries to come up close to the Crystal Coast, then I would, yes, definitely be more concerned in the Outer Banks. So I wouldn't say let down your guard at this point, but I think this is more of a Wilmington storm than it would be a Hatteras storm. Virginia Beach, definitely something we're keeping an eye on at this point. Delaware, the Delmarva, and all the way up to Chesapeake Bay could get kind of nasty. We will have a weakening storm at this point, but it may track right over New Jersey and New York City. So millions of people are definitely in the path of this storm, even though it should be weakening at this point. But the fact that it's accelerating and bringing all the wind and rain up with it, it's going to be one of the biggest weather makers of the year in the eastern U.S. by far, I think. So 1960s home, definitely you guys got battered in Florence because that system just slowed to a crawl and hit you over and over and over again. That was insane. You know, I don't think this storm's going to be nearly as big or as intense as Florence. The difference, though, if Florence was weakening and slowing down, this will be maybe strengthening and speeding up. So you have to keep that momentum in mind. But definitely, I don't think we're going to see anything kind of like Florence at this point. Certainly not from a flooding standpoint, probably not from a surge standpoint either. As far as Virginia, chance for intense tornadoes during the storm. You know, I am going to say in this area, along and east of the track, there will probably be a few tornadoes which could be short-lived but cause damage. We saw that in Florence, and we could see that. I think, you know, the best odds for tornadoes are probably going to be, you know, Wilmington, Surf City, Jacksonville, so Onslow County basically, you know, up in here maybe, Aurora, New Bern, Elizabeth City, Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, those areas. I don't think likely to the west of the track we're going to see too many tornadoes, but don't be surprised if something very quick spun up. Intense tornadoes, this is not the setup for intense tornadoes. If it were a Category 3 or higher storm, maybe. But we think at the worst probably it's going to be a Category 1, maybe, very small chance, low-end Category 2. But those winds aloft aren't quite as strong, so tornadoes probably not too likely. But I will tell you guys what, because the jet stream is going to be strengthening and picking this thing up, as it accelerates northeast, who's to say there can't be tornadoes in Virginia and all the way up through the Delmarva, New Jersey, New York, into New England. I would not be surprised to see a few tornadoes up in here, the kind that can cause damage, of course, as any tornado could. Yeah, so as far as Tarboro, I would first of all be worried about the Tar River, because, you know, if you've been following us back in the spring, we had all that rain and the Tar River caused a lot of flooding, and I know it's dropped down since then, but it hasn't exactly been a super dry summer either. So let me show you guys what we're looking at as far as the River Center forecast, because this is actually pretty important. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this, by the way. So a couple days ago when I had the river forecast up on my computer, we were seeing maybe a couple of these near flood stage or minor flood stage forecasts. Now what we're seeing is that the Southeast River Forecast Center has now upped the game on the chance of some flooding. So the Tar River at Tarboro right here, I will load this up for you. It's definitely expected to climb. Now during the height of the storm, I don't think the flooding is even going to be an issue. My concern for the Tar River is what's going to happen upstream from you guys up in Virginia. And we may not see flooding until the end of this week coming up, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday. In fact, they're predicting this is still going up, but 20 feet at the end of the day on Friday. So, you know, as this storm comes by, there will be heavy rain and wind, but the flooding could follow a lot later at the river in Tarboro. So that's something I think we need to keep in mind. And I actually wanted to show you guys something else here, too. I was taking a look at this a little bit earlier. Oops. Let's see where I was at here. So this is what's called a meteorological model ensemble. What it does is it takes several river forecast models and kind of looks at what could be the worst possible scenario, what's the best. And the one river that stands out to me is the Neuse River. This is in Smithfield over in Johnston County, North Carolina. So, you know, the average forecast mean shows maybe some moderate flooding coming on the 6th, which is Thursday, and then it starts dropping off on Friday. But there are a couple of models that if this storm goes in the right spot to produce a lot of rain, that could produce major flooding on the Neuse River. This would be on Thursday and Friday, actually starting on Wednesday morning. Could produce major flooding. So the chance of that happening is probably about 30%, but it is definitely a chance that's climbing from what I've seen on the models. And you can see on the, this is the Neuse River, but the Tar River, wait, take that back. So the Tar River, Rocky Mount, for example, not showing that flood threat at this point, at least not on this model. But interestingly, that forecast that I was just looking at, let me see if I can find that for you guys. So there's Tarboro. Let's go to the next spot here. Tarboro. That's what I looked at, right? Tarboro. Greenville. Rocky Mount. That's what we're looking at. So right now, the Tar River at Tarboro looks to be the one that's going to be the biggest concern. But upstream in Rocky Mount, you know, it's not forecast to reach that level just yet. So if you're in Tarboro, Princeville, you guys have been through so many floods lately. You're probably numb to it, but don't let your guard down, is what I'm saying. Just because the forecast says a certain thing right now doesn't mean it can't change at this point. Southern Pender County. I have to remind myself where Pender is. That's Topsail Beach, right? I know that's right up from Wilmington because I have friends who live in North Topsail, and that beach has been battered hard. Chris, what part of Pender County are you in? While we do that, I'm going to go and show you guys. We'll take a peek at Virginia too while we're up here. Some of these models are showing the James River in Richmond maybe getting up into the flood stage. I mean, it's a 20% chance of some minor flooding, but one model does show moderate flooding in Richmond, so that's a concern. And you can see farther up in Pennsylvania, if any of you guys have family up there, I know Mike's from outside Philly, I have family that way, could see some flooding, but looks like maybe the worst potential flooding would be on the Tar and the Neuse rivers at this point. We've got other rivers, the Lumber River coming down here, the Cape Fear River, the PD River, and I think Little PD down at and the Waccamaw River, of course, in Conway. We've had floods from Florence in these rivers, I know that. Matthew is more of a problem up in here. I'm not saying this is going to be either of them. Oh, Burgaw. Okay, I know exactly where Burgaw is. I think I played golf over at River Landing there, so that's not too far from Burgaw. So you're inland a little bit. I think you could definitely have some wind problems and definitely some heavy rain. Do want to show you guys the rainfall map I was taking a peek at over here. So Burgaw down in here, you're kind of more of a problem with wind, I think, Chris, over in Burgaw. But maybe also we have to watch the rivers there, the Cape Fear River, to see what comes down. But you can see on this rainfall map why we think the Tar River's got the best chance at flooding, because all this rain coming up from Virginia, this is like a 4 or 5 inch potential north, you know, maybe like Rocky Mount and on to the west, maybe Norlina. Definitely that rain is going to come down the river and down in the Tarboro area, perhaps even down toward Greenville. We've got to keep an eye on things. And then you can see all this rain down in the Charleston area. If you're down in Charleston, South Carolina, you've got some flooding problems potentially. Plus the fact that that harbor floods pretty easily at any kind of high tide or low tide, which we are going to have a new moon, so high tide tomorrow evening is looking pretty rough. But I think flooding, Charleston for sure, maybe Conway, places like you know, Lumberton. I want to say Raleigh, it certainly is possible, but maybe more over into Johnston County and up into you know, Edgecombe and Nash counties are prone to flooding at this point. And you're going to see a large area of the eastern U.S. that has to worry about flooding. But I think for us locally, it's the inland areas that have to worry about flooding, where the coastal areas have to worry about storm surge of a few feet, definitely 70 to 80 mile an hour wind, and also some tornadoes as this thing comes in tomorrow night and into Tuesday morning. Okay. This is my screen. Let's do this. I don't know if I can move it anymore unless I pull my software up and do something like, yeah, that's not what we wanted. All right. Sorry, David. I'm going to see what I can do here. Because again, I'm a noob when it comes to all this live streaming. That wasn't it. All right. Yikes. Okay. Well, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. But hopefully you guys can kind of see the rainfall map here. Um, Jacksonville, I'm definitely concerned about some tornadoes and some strong wind. Let me show you guys our wind forecast as we have it out here. And first we'll look at the impacts. So Jacksonville, you're kind of just to the right of those extreme impacts. You know, definitely Wilmington, Burgaw, up to maybe Kinston and south of Greenville. That area's got the most risk of the strongest wind and also tornadoes. At the coast, we're of course worried about storm surge. You know, a high risk because of the flooding I think we're going to see, as well as some of the wind in places as far west as Fayetteville, over to Raleigh, Richmond, even Norfolk. And then a moderate risk, believe it or not, in Charleston. I think our biggest concern is for surge coming into the harbor and causing some flooding over there at the Battery in downtown. Myrtle Beach is kind of on the line between moderate and high, but we think the most extreme damage when you combine the wind and the rain and the tornado threats actually going to be kind of in the same area that had the problems that we had during Florence, unfortunately. Now, when I say extreme, I'm not talking Florence kind of rain, but what I'm talking about is a very quick hitting storm that's going to cause a lot of power outages, trees to come down, river flooding, and certainly some storm surge at the coast. So when I say extreme, we're not talking like a Category 3 or 4 hurricane. We're talking Category 1 at worst. But the fact that it's going to be accelerating and carrying a lot of punch with it and a lot of moisture does make me concerned about this area as well. We had a wind map up earlier, and I do want to get that for you guys here. This is the extreme area, by the way, the 70 to 80 mile per hour possible wind gusts at this point. And I wouldn't be shocked if somebody down here didn't pick up a gust to 90. Definitely something that we'll have to keep an eye on at this point. Maybe Cape Fear, Fort Fisher, Oak Island, Bald Head Island. You know, Wilmington proper is probably not going to see quite as much wind. But if we have a tornado or anything of that nature, of course, we've got the wind problems as well. But you can see why we have this extreme area in here. And the questions I got for Jacksonville, yeah, I mean, we could see wind gusts on the order of 60, 65 miles per hour. Most likely that's going to be right around sunrise on Tuesday, I think. So that's definitely something that could be an issue. And definitely something we need to be prepared for. So even if this thing is like a high 70 mile per hour tropical storm, doesn't mean there can't be some gusts or some tornadoes as this thing comes on shore that produce some hurricane force wind. And that's why the Hurricane Center, in conjunction with local weather service offices, has that hurricane watch out for this area over in here, because that's obviously where our best shot at hurricanes force winds are going to be. So I've gotten a lot of questions from you guys. We're going to wrap this up at 10 o'clock here. I don't have any new updates that I think from the Hurricane Center, but I'm going to refresh. Yeah, okay, so I do need to share this with you guys. The center of the storm is here and now to the north of the storm. For the first time, we're seeing flight level winds close to hurricane force. So this is definitely showing us that the wind field is expanding northwest. And that's something that definitely will be making a difference as the storm comes closer to us overnight tomorrow night. With more of that wind on the northwest side, that means some of you guys in the inland areas west of the Cape Fear River could unfortunately be beneficiaries of that kind of wind. It won't be as strong as it is out over the several thousand feet up where the planes are flying, but definitely the fact that yesterday at this time we didn't have this kind of wind on the western side of the storm, and now tonight we do, means we definitely have a storm that's intensifying, or at least expanding its breadth and how powerful it could be and how much real estate it could take up. So that's something that kind of concerns me. Again, it's nighttime over the Gulf Stream, and things can definitely change between now and this time tomorrow night. But definitely trends we need to monitor here with Carolina Weather Authority from Isaias. Just the fact that these kind of winds here, which correlate to 64 to 83 knots, which in miles per hour is between 75 and 95, that's at flight level. Now the winds at the ground are not quite that strong, so they're going to estimate a 10% reduction, which means taking 10% off, we get between 65 and 80 mile per hour wind up here. So this very well could be a hurricane already. We'll see if the Hurricane Center has done anything about it just yet. My guess is probably not quite yet. No updates from them yet, but I think at 11 o'clock we may have ourselves a 75 or 80 mile per hour hurricane again. You know, as far as the track goes, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. If I show you guys too the arrival times of these winds, It's kind of hard to see this, so let's just do 3 days. This is when the tropical storm force winds are likely to arrive. So you'll start to notice those kind of winds in Charleston tomorrow morning, perhaps around lunchtime, and then in Myrtle Beach tomorrow evening around dark. And then later tomorrow evening across North Carolina is when the winds should ramp up quite a bit. In Virginia, it's going to be late Monday night into Tuesday morning, and then farther up to the northeast, it should be during the day on Tuesday. The other thing we'll show is wind speed probabilities. This is the hurricane wind speed probability, and I think they're a little bit too conservative because we're likely seeing some hurricane winds in here already. So to go 5% I think is too low. But if you can take this area of hurricane force wind and extend it in this direction, you can see that this part of North Carolina is going to eventually, if you kind of extrapolate this area northeastward, this area's got the highest chance of seeing a probability of hurricane force wind. So I would not be surprised if they up these numbers here with the newest advisory coming out here at 11 o'clock. Let's see if there's anything else. Flash flood potential. This is something that I've seen grow. So flash flooding, a moderate risk of that in eastern South Carolina and right to the near and just to the west of the track. This would be tomorrow night, probably most likely first thing on Tuesday morning, so between like 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., but a slight risk of some flooding farther up. And then as we carry on into the day on Tuesday, still a threat for flooding first thing across Raleigh and points north and east, but then Richmond in the morning, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Reading, Lancaster, Pennsylvania during the late morning and into the afternoon hours. So a lot of people are going to be impacted by the threat for flooding, maybe 50 million people. So when we put that out in our articles, we aren't trying to get some hype going. It's definitely going to be a lot of people impacted. So that's something to keep in mind. So anyway, it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and close things down for now, but we'll keep you guys posted with our latest updates on what's going on with Isaias. And appreciate you guys taking some time out of your night to join us. We're going to have more as we get into the storm here tomorrow night and certainly on Tuesday morning. So you guys be safe. Do what you can. Do your best, of course. And we're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. Have a great night, everyone. See ya.